Tom Cruise stars in Top Gun Maverick, a sequel to the 1986 film Top Gun, directed by Tony Scott. That's the film that made Tom Cruise sort of a bona fide superstar. He's still making films to this day, and everybody in the world knows who Tom Cruise is, largely because of that original film back in 1986, which, incidentally, was the peak year for cinema, and it has been all downhill ever since. Now, Top Gun Maverick is awesome. This is one of those films that perfectly executes exactly what it sets out to do. The acting, cinematography, action scenes, they're all top notch. If you're listening to a review of this film on this channel, you've probably already listened to a dozen other reviewers all say the exact same thing. Everything you've heard about the air combat scenes is true. They are gorgeous. It's definitely a feat of cinematic achievement that Cruise and crew were able to sort of pull off the visuals and all of the various things they did with this, being actually in F-18 fighter jets. Everything you're seeing is real. Obviously, the missiles and the bullets aren't real, but just the flying around stuff is sort of just breathtaking to behold on a big screen, honestly. Now, Maverick takes everything that people sort of loved about that original Top Gun, the iconic characters, the music, the moments, and ramps them all up to 11, and unabashedly so. The story, sort of involving Maverick being called back to Top Gun after like 40 years or something. He's got to train a crew of pilots that includes his best friend Goose's son to go on this highly dangerous mission. It's sort of perfect because the original Top Gun had basically no story at all. This actually has a story to it. The original Top Gun, which I rewatched a day before I went and saw Top Gun Maverick just to sort of refresh myself on it, it's basically just training. The 90% of the movie is just these guys training each other, and then there's like kind of like a tacked on fight scene at the very end that allows Maverick and Iceman to sort of become friends. But all those story beats from the first film sort of seamlessly transition over to this. So if you are familiar with the first Top Gun, or in my opinion, I recommend watching the original Top Gun before you see this. It'll only enhance your opinion of this movie if you're really familiar with the original Top Gun. But all of it sort of works perfectly. Now, minor spoilers here coming up. I've seen some criticism that the film has too much of a, quote, happy ending without going into sort of major details about that. If someone's looking to criticize this movie because of whatever reason, they may point to the fact that there's very little death in this movie. You might think, there's a dozen hotshot fighter pilots going on some sort of mission, that there's going to be a lot of death, destruction, carnage, pull on your heartstrings sort of thing. That ain't in here. There is death, but not in the way that you may expect. But you know what? I think that's the strength of this film, honestly. Maverick's arc in this film is clearly set up that he's trying to get everyone to survive this dangerous mission. The military is even set up. John Hamm plays this really sort of straight-edged, kind of prickish, military authoritarian guy, and there's even a moment in this film where Tom Cruise says, hey, I'm training them to come back alive. And John Hamm's like, hey, they know what they signed up for. Like military is taking of, hey, we're going to get some loss here. Some people are going to die. But Maverick's like, no, they're my responsibility. I'm not going to let anybody die, including, my best friend's son. So I feel like there's a place in cinema for good old-fashioned feel-good endings, like cinema used to do before everyone became obsessed with making things as dark and emo as possible in order to get that gritty realism. I've seen this now twice in theaters, and I can say that both times the audience was cheering and clapping when characters saved one another or took out the generic bad guy. I will also say that another aspect I find impressive is that this isn't caused by a, quote, America's great and awesome sort of narrative running throughout it. It's just, there's very little sort of rah, we're America, we're great. This is really a character study about Maverick trying to come to grips with not wanting the son of his best friend to die and leading his son into this incredibly highly dangerous final battle sort of thing. It's more of just say, hey, here's a group of heroes. We have to vanquish this bad guy story, just sort of wrapped up in these really believable character arcs of these various individuals and these pilots. And part of the reason this film has such an awesome emotional finale for the audience is that it takes its time building up its characters. There's a place for an ensemble piece like Aliens, which I think is the best representation of, where the dramatic tension is ramped up because a character you love is dying like every 10 minutes. There's also a place for, damn, that was just fun. And I'm happy that these guys didn't die because some screenwriter felt it was a requirement for quote unquote stakes. I think the fact that this movie is overwhelmingly being loved by audiences and critics alike should say everything that needs to be said about it. It sort of reminds me a little bit of when I went and saw Paranormal Activity, and the audience just was in love with that movie. Sometimes you can kind of look at a movie and you just say it has an it factor to it that other movies don't have, and I definitely think Top Gun Maverick has that it factor. So anybody who says this movie is bad or sucks or whatever should just immediately have their credibility questioned. Now, you may not dig this type of movie, and that's 100% fine. There are plenty of movies that I cannot stand, but I would recognize, yeah, that's a good movie. Only a fool would honestly try to say that Top Gun Maverick sucks or is a bad movie of any kind. It is really, really good. There are dumbasses out there who say Shawshank Redemption is awful, or like, come on, like, just please. Come on. For what it is setting out to do, it's perfect. Go see this in a theater if you can. It feels like in our lives, everything just kind of sucks right now. Just the world in general kind of sucks. So I think one of the reasons why people are loving this movie so much is because it does feel good. It gives you moments of like, yes, not everything is so dire and we can come out on top. And I think that a lot of people are just kind of looking for that kind of escapism mentality right now and just feeling good. You want to feel good when you leave the theater, and you will feel awesome when you leave the theater after watching Top Gun Maverick. I give this an A+. I don't see a single thing that is wrong with this movie based on what it's trying to do. It succeeds on all levels. A+, go see it in the theater. The end. Good night.